Well, I started out as a painter. So for years, I was doing really traditional kind of oil on canvas paintings. About 10 years ago, I just went to an aerial acrobatics class, which is, if anyone doesn't know what it is, it's like a circus art form. You use apparatus like aerial silks, trapeze, I mainly do rope. So I went to that. I was doing it for about 6 years. I started performing as an aerialist,
right.
And I was painting. So I was doing these two really different art forms very separately. But I was able to like use them both in a really expressive way, like a way to express myself creatively. So I just decided that I really wanted to blend them into one art form.
Right.
I felt like I couldn't really do it on my own. It was quite a big thing to do, so I went to do a master's to do that. I spent 3 years just experimenting, trying things out, and then I eventually came to my practice that I have now.
So you're primarily a painter now?
I still refer to myself as a painter because I still see through a painter's eyes.
Right.
I still look at things in the way that a painter does.
Yeah.
But I don't paint in any traditional way now.
Meaning?
Okay, my main practice at the moment is a series called Traces. So I call it interdisciplinary drawing. I get on my rope, my aerial rope, which is hanging from a ceiling.
And this is in your studio, is it?
Yeah, it's wherever I can find.
Wherever you can find a studio to work, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it keeps changing.
Yeah.
So I go up the rope, there's powder on the floor. I do an aerial dance in the air, which is where the acrobatics comes in. As the rope moves, it swishes around and creates this drawing on the floor. I climb back down, I sweep it all back up so that there's nothing left, and that's the artwork.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, because the work that I'm familiar with is always quite figurative, so you've sort of shifted away from that, or is there still a figurative, there's no figurative sort of element to it?
No. Now, well, I'm the figure now.
Right,
Yeah.
Interesting. So, a lot of these questions are sort of directed towards individuals' experience with coastal currents. But what you exhibited with Manova last year?
Baker Manova Gallery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you find that experience, and how did you find that experience connected with coastal currents? How was that for you?
Yeah, it was really great. It was actually one of my most memorable experiences with the performative work I do. So I've been talking to Russell and Olga for quite a few years about working there because the space is just perfect for what I do. It's got the really high ceilings, the beams.
This is in Norman Road if
anybody
doesn't know. Sorry.
Sorry. It's got all these architectural beams where I can rig my rope to, and it's got a really big open floor space. So yeah, it's great that I finally got to work there. I'd like to work with them again. It's got this really good, the balcony is where most of the people stood where they were watching, so they could look down at the drawing happening on the floor while being almost at the same level that I was up in the air. Working in like public spaces with people and visitors, it always leads to really unexpected things happening. So things happened like I'd planned to have this like lighting with a spotlight and all of the lights off, so the light was just on the performance space. But it turned out that on the day the restaurant was open, so the lights couldn't be turned off. Yeah. So I'm always just having to like deal with situations like that, but that's fine. Another situation, I'd done my usual performance in which I sweep up the powder on the floor, then I walk out of the space. But Russell, the gallery director, asked me to immediately remove the paper that was on the floor. Because I have a 4 metre by 4 metre piece of paper on the floor below me in this situation.
Yeah.
So while the audience was still there, I walked back out, pulled the paper up and screwed it up into a giant ball and then walked off. And the audience clapped even louder than the first time. Yeah, so it's all it's like exciting things like that happen when I'm working in the public, and it might lead on to something else. Like I quite like to incorporate that aspect where I scribble up the paper into something in the future.
So has this become a much bigger part of the way you work now, in terms of performing in front of an audience rather than that shut away in a studio and doing something?
Yeah. When I was a painter, I was just really on my own in a studio.
Yeah.
But doing this kind of work, it's much more involved with people. I mean, in the way I work, I train in these circus spaces now, mostly up in London, because that's where they all are. And it's really a giant community. Like, you go into this space and there's loads of circus artists all training together.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So when did you last go up there to do that?
Oh, it was a couple of days ago.
Right.
So,
that's
yeah,
a really
I'm there
good
every
thing.
week. Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Love it. So, yeah, I mean, you're a quiet person, so all of a sudden you sort of you put yourself out there. Is that sort of quite challenging?
Well, I mean, this is way more challenging for me than
I guess.
any performing. I'm so much more nervous doing this than performing, because I don't know, performing I kind of become, it's like I become a different person, like I'm not really myself.
Yeah.
And
Put the mask on.
Yeah, kind of. Or I kind of lose myself and just become the work.
Yeah, interesting. So, Orange, like, does your audience or impacting your audience have a great influence on your performance?
One of the main influences on the practice that I do are Tibetan sand mandalas.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone doesn't know what that is, Tibetan monks will spend days creating the sand mandala using colourful sand. They just work in there making this drawing, a few of them together. At the end, they'll sweep it all up and they'll bring the sand to a body of water, and it symbolises impermanence. So my work is really based on that. People are welcome to go and observe it, but it's not important to the work, and that's how I operate with my practice. It's like I arrange a place, a time, I go, I make the drawing, but actually whether there's people watching or not isn't really that important for me. I've done quite a few just in a place isolated in a studio, and the only documentation was like video. And sometimes I actually prefer that too with an audience. It's just different. Yeah. So the audience isn't my main priority. Though last year I was invited to work with Art in Romney Marsh Visual Arts Festival.
Yeah.
For the first time I did a workshop that accommodated the performance I did. Another aspect of my work is something called somatics, which is, it's all about your internal first-person experience of your own body, your own movements, and your own aliveness. So when I do my work, I'm experiencing that myself, but the observers aren't really. I notice they're just standing there quite passively observing me and not really experiencing their own bodies. So the workshops are the first time that I could really facilitate and allow other people to experience their own bodies. And that I'm really excited about. I want to carry on developing that aspect.
So do you see that as a collaborative experience?
Yeah. What I did is I had them all come together and create a large drawing together on the floor using miniature ropes that I made of different lengths. So they were all together, moving together, weaving around each other, and it became a collaborative piece. Yeah.
Have you got plans to do more of that sort of work in the future?
Yes. Yeah, I really want it to become a main part of my work now. So yeah, I want to develop it with
people love
different
workshops
groups.
as well.
Yeah.
So it's a good money, though. So, what advice would you give to your younger self or anyone aspiring to do what you do?
I would say first thing is keep experimenting. Don't just find one way of doing things and then keep doing that. Especially if you want to work interdisciplinary the way I do, like I mix loads of different mediums together and I'm open to keep bringing more in and trying things out. So just keep trying things out. Make loads of mistakes, make loads of really bad art, and then something good will come out of it. Like you'll
That's
find
unavoidable,
something.
yeah.
You'll find something really good and interesting that you can pick up on and then develop from there. Yeah, but just keep experimenting.
Brilliant. Well, that's a really insightful, Rebecca, and I've sort of I wish I'd had more conversations with you. But it's like that connection with you being a student. I thought, yeah, I knew you were a student, but I didn't quite make that connection. So that's quite interesting. But thank you.